just really on the protection and support of various uses for arts and culture. There's a specific question here about, in addition to the protection of theatres, how else should the City Council support theatres in particular? Are there any views that anybody wants to
thought though, I was looking at that side of the room.
Sorry.
Okay.
Apologies in advance. I think my answer is contact information coordination. And the first thing I should say is we have been greatly supported generally by Westminster, and in particular by Theatreland, and Roger and Sajad have been absolutely fantastic. That sort of changed the face of communication between Westminster and us. So, but leaving that great work aside, as organisations who, Billy, you're better than me, how many people do we bring into the West End a year? 11 million. There are probably 5 or 6 contact points in all of the theatre-owned organisations. But in terms of planning, it's as if we don't exist every single time a planning issue comes up. So every single time a new officer writes a standard letter, sometimes to our registered address, so we have 21 days to reply to a letter that you probably only get with 3 days to go because it's gone in the post to the wrong place. And then you start from scratch. This is who we are. This is what our theatre does. This is what happens in a theatre. This is what time we open. This is how you do a get-in. And I'm not asking for special treatment, but it's as if we are, remarkably, given what the UDP says, it is as if we are a resident from quite a long way away saying it's slightly irritating.
What you're really asking for, in a way, is a knowledge bank within the organisation, that you have a point of contact, or there is an officer with specialist theatre knowledge who will handle your applications.
And some coordination. So last year in Shaftesbury Avenue, we were hugely affected by 3 huge developments. We had to start from scratch with the developers and the council. As it turned out, all the developments dealt with us, very encouragingly. But it's so much time and energy from base point for what are very important businesses in the West End.
Thank you. Do you want to add to that? No.
I certainly take the point. And one of the constraints is that obviously at some point these large applications are quite likely to appear in front of a planning inspectorate. So although we will have our internal, you still may need to give that information again and again and again. But certainly we should see what we can do about standardising it and making sure that it's there.
Do we think, Graham mentioned some of the theatres that we've lost. I hope we're going to be getting something in Westminster to replace the Westminster Theatre eventually. But should we be looking, and this is really to the residents, through Section 106 monies, we look at health centres, we look at new gyms, we look at social housing and the like. Should we also be looking at community space and arts space? And cost of land being at a premium, it makes it very difficult. But is that something that residents would like to be seeing through Section 106 agreements and developments?
Speaking for the Victoria Interchange Group, I'm sure we would definitely say yes to that. Our own personal, not battle exactly, that's an exaggeration, was to get a central library in Victoria Street in a prominent position from the Land Securities application for Victoria Street. So we are absolutely committed to both municipal buildings and arts and cultural buildings, rather than just mammon, if I can put it that way, to, produce the right kind of mix. And we are very short of spaces for community groups. I think that is, to echo your point there. Yeah, so no, I think we would be 100% up for that. There is a slight difficulty, and that is some theatres are commercial organisations. So in some situations, I think there would be ambivalence towards using Section 106 to support, to underwrite, basically, that.
I'm going to go to David and then to the gentleman at the front.
I wondered, Daniel, whether it would be possible to put the question you just put in a different way. Because the challenge that faces the communities is, on balance, what would they prefer? Because there is we're currently contributing by direct delivery of affordable housing. We're contributing. We currently have got somebody who's in fact working out of our office who's on getting people into jobs in Westminster. We're making contributions and physically carrying out large amounts of public realm improvements. And while I totally support, and I'm the trustee of a charity, of an orchestra that plays in Westminster, I'm involved in a thing called Music in Mayfair, which is just about to put on its 100th concert. So I'm absolutely supportive of everything that's been said. But we have to get this balance, which is another word we were using earlier on. And are people prepared to not receive as much money going into public realm improvements, into supporting getting people into work, in residential, in order to get money for theatres? That's the question.
Yep, this is an age-old debate.
I just wanted to pick up on Graham's point about sort of loss of kind of community venues. Is there a way within planning that should a space become available, for instance, like with the Westminster, through a planning gain, that the council could have some kind of restriction in its use, rather than it basically turning into yet another commercial venue, albeit a slightly smaller one, but a space, a venue, a project that is multi-purpose, that is of benefit both to the immediate community and London in general, rather than another 400-seater venue in Westminster.
I think that's for the officers to respond.
Yeah, I think it would depend on individual case-by-case basis, but on some occasions it could potentially be possible to have some sort of community use agreement as part of a Section 106, but I can't be categorical about that in every case. I think it would depend on the individual site and the circumstances of that case.
But who would make the decision as to kind of ring-fence the usage of that property? If you've got a situation where you have a planning gain site, which is what Westminster Theatre was or is, surely you're in a position to say, not only do you have to build the theatre, but it has to be for this particular use. Is there no way that can be controlled by the planning agreement? Because otherwise somebody just comes along, takes the theatre on, and it just becomes yet another commercial venture.
Potentially it could be. The way that the policy is at the moment, that I don't think it necessarily allows for that, but that could be something which comes out of consultation, which is then absorbed into future policy.
I think it's a very interesting point. I think community use is fundamental, that when one has community use, it has to be as it says on the tin.